Have you ever wondered how we can give our aging loved ones the best care, without draining our savings? You might be surprised by the answer. In this video, I'll share 3 real-life stories of seniors who discovered creative and affordable ways to live with dignity and happiness. These stories show us how family connections, community support, and adapting to change can truly transform the aging experience. Let's begin with one inspiring senior, Mr. Harold Bennett, age 75. Over the past few years, Harold tried both hiring a caregiver and staying in a nursing home. Both options turned out to be pricey and not ideal for someone without a large pension. "I turned 75 this year," he shared, "and my wife passed away more than 5 years ago. Not long after her passing, he hired a caregiver. But after only 2 months, he let her go. Cooking was never Harold's strength, so his children were concerned he might not eat properly. They offered to chip in and pay for the caregiver. The arrangement was $800 per month, which included her preparing meals and helping around the house. The caregiver, a woman in her 40s from a nearby town, seemed reliable at first, but her food was barely edible, and she spent more time watching TV or scrolling through her phone than caring for Harold. He often had to call her name multiple times just to get her attention. Eventually, Harold realized this wasn't working. "It felt like I was the one looking after her," he said. Spending $800 a month on someone who barely lifted a finger didn't make sense anymore. So Harold made a bold decision. He let the caregiver go and decided to live on his own. His children then suggested a nearby assisted living center. But Harold was hesitant. He valued his freedom. Modern nursing homes, in his experience, are too controlled. You have to sign in and out each time you leave. The atmosphere is often gloomy, with residents passing away more frequently than you'd like to admit. "I didn't last a full month," Harold said. "If you're still capable, you shouldn't give up your independence just yet." Later, his children suggested he rotate living with each of them. Harold appreciated the offer but felt uneasy about the idea. He did try it out, staying at each child's home for no more than 2 weeks. First, he stayed with his son, Andrew. Both Andrew and his wife worked full-time and were rarely home. They were kind and thoughtful. His daughter-in-law even prepared lunch for Harold and left it in the fridge before heading to work, but the house felt empty during the day. Harold spent most of his time alone. He didn't know the neighbors and missed the comfort of his own home. Even though they treated him well, he noticed some small signs of being othered. His plates and cups were kept separate, and there were subtle differences in how he was treated. At his daughter's place, it wasn't much better. She didn't want him using the washing machine, saying older people's clothes smelled musty. Harold was okay with hand washing, but that too was frowned upon, so he started walking to a laundromat, something he didn't enjoy. That's when it hit him. There's truly no place like home. Harold didn't expect his daughter, Michelle, to care for him full-time. She and her husband were always warm and respectful, but Michelle's in-laws also needed their attention. Back when Michelle's kids were small, it was her husband's parents who helped raise them. And when they bought their first home and car, it was Michelle's in-laws who provided the down payment. As Harold reflected on this, he realized something important. As we grow older, we have to see our situation clearly. "Since my wife passed, I've learned to rely on myself," he said. "If I'm still able to take care of myself, there's no reason I shouldn't." So, Harold decided to focus on regaining his independence. He learned to cook simple meals like stir-fry and even mastered the art of making homemade dinner rolls. Every morning, he practiced Tai Chi at the local park. Through those early morning sessions, Harold met a group of seniors who, like him, lived alone and wanted to stay active. They started talking regularly, and eventually created a small support circle. There were about a dozen of them at first, all living independently, without spouses or nearby family. Over time, they started checking in on each other. They formed a text group where everyone would send a simple, "I'm okay," each morning. If someone didn't check in, another member would go by their house to see if everything was all right. The group kept growing. Soon, they had nearly 20 members, all seniors, all living alone but united by a shared purpose: to stay healthy, supported, and emotionally connected. For Harold and others, this group became a lifeline. None of us really wanted to go to a nursing home or hire full-time help, Harold said. And most of us live on modest pensions. So we found a better way. They created a system where members could ask for help and offer help, for a small fee. If someone wasn't feeling well and needed company at the doctor's office or help with a hot meal, they'd send a message. Anyone available could assist, and they'd be paid $10 an hour. Harold explained. Last time I needed to go for a checkup, Mr. Wallace from the group came along. He stayed with me for 3 days, 8 hours a day. I paid him $240 as agreed. Everyone appreciated the fairness of this setup. You helped when you could, and you got help when you needed it. It wasn't charity, it was community. Seniors supporting seniors, without losing dignity or independence. Most importantly, they trusted each other. Their children, knowing they were part of this tight-knit group, felt relieved. The group also organized small outings, walks in the park, grocery trips, even potlucks. What began as a simple support system had grown into a vibrant, self-sustaining community. For Harold, it was a perfect balance: freedom, dignity, friendship, and just enough help when needed. While Harold found comfort in his new routine, not everyone in his circle had it so smooth. Take Margaret Lane, age 65, for example. Margaret's children were incredibly kind and thoughtful, but she never wanted to be a burden. After her husband passed away over 2 years ago, people suggested she find companionship again. But Margaret enjoyed her own company. Some friends said I should meet someone new, she said. But I wasn't ready. I like the peace and quiet. Margaret spent her days writing in her journal, reading mystery novels, and tending to her balcony garden. Occasionally, she'd meet a neighbor for coffee or join a local book club. She lived alone, but her kids were just a short drive away and visited whenever they could. Her monthly pension was modest, just under $900, but with no dependents and a frugal lifestyle, Margaret had managed to save a decent amount. Even so, her children constantly worried. They invited her to move in with them. Margaret always gently declined. They meant well, she said. They didn't want me to feel lonely. They even brought up the idea of a senior living center, saying it would be easier and more social. But Margaret knew herself. She was still healthy, mobile, and fully capable of cooking and cleaning. Why should I give that up? She asked. I don't need round-the-clock assistance. I just need to feel like I'm in control of my life. Eventually, her daughter suggested another option, a remote caregiver system. At first I panicked. Margaret laughed. The thought of a young stranger living in my home made me cringe. But it wasn't what she thought. Her daughter explained it was simply a smart camera system that allowed for gentle check-ins throughout the day. Still, Margaret wasn't sold on the idea. After all, her grandchildren had never really stayed with her. They were mostly cared for by their other grandmother. And truthfully, even if she wanted to live with her daughter, there wouldn't be enough space. The apartment only had 2 bedrooms. Margaret realized that no matter how much you love your kids, their home doesn't always feel like your home. She remembered a saying her mother used to repeat. A parent's home is always open to their children, but a child's home is rarely open to the parent. That hit her hard. Margaret lowered her expectations, knowing it would save her from heartache. She stopped hoping her kids would be the solution and started thinking about what kind of life she could create for herself. That's when a neighbor introduced her to Calvin Reese, a widower just a few years older, with a gentle personality and a stable pension. Calvin had also been through loss and was open to companionship. They started spending time together, simple things like walking through the Sunday market or picking out vegetables at the farmer's stand. After 2 months, Margaret felt comfortable. Calvin offered her a suggestion. Why not rent your place out and come live with me? You'd make some income, and I'd cover the groceries. Margaret didn't say no, but she wasn't fully sure either. She moved in with Calvin, thinking they'd share chores and household expenses. At first, things went well. But soon, Margaret noticed a shift. Calvin didn't really hold up his end of the deal. He left messes around the house, spent hours out playing cards, and expected dinner to be ready when he got home. When Margaret asked for help grocery shopping, he shrugged. When she cooked, he criticized her meals. Once, while browsing a small jewelry stand at the mall, Margaret pointed out a second-hand gold ring, only $40. "I thought it could be something symbolic," she recalled. "Not a big deal. Just a sweet gesture." But Calvin laughed it off. "We're too old for that nonsense," he said. "Might as well spend it on a pork roast instead." Margaret bought the ring herself. And when Calvin later refused to follow through on giving her a share of his pension, as he had originally promised, she realized it was time to leave. "He promised to handle the bills, but then changed his mind," she said. "I was doing everything, cooking, cleaning, managing the house. And all he did was nap and complain." That same evening, Margaret packed her bags and moved back home. Thankfully, she hadn't rented out her apartment yet. And with her pension and savings still intact, she had her peace, and her independence, restored. Returning to her own space gave Margaret a sense of calm. But the silence wasn't easy to live with. Every corner of her home whispered memories of her late husband. As days passed, the loneliness slowly started to creep in again. That's when, at her neighbor Orland's son's wedding, she bumped into an old friend who had also chosen a different path. Her friend had been living in a senior hotel apartment for over 6 months, and loved it. "It's comfortable, affordable, and gives me privacy without the burden of chores," the friend said. After the wedding, Margaret visited the apartment, and immediately felt something shift. The building was warm and welcoming. Each unit was a cozy studio with tasteful decor, daily housekeeping, and meals included, breakfast and dinner served every day. And the best part? It cost about the same as a standard retirement home, but offered much more freedom. Residents could come and go as they pleased, no sign-ins or strict visiting hours. That night, Margaret went home, called a rental agency, and listed her house. With the rental income and her pension, she realized she could afford the senior hotel apartment without relying heavily on her children. When she told her kids, they were skeptical at first. "Mom, living in a hotel sounds expensive," her son said. She smiled and replied, "Then feel free to chip in a little. Even $100 a month from each of you would help. But I'm not asking, I'm informing. I want to live my life with peace and dignity." Margaret made the move. With just over $600 in pension, and some help from renting her house, she covered the $1,000 monthly cost of the hotel apartment. It gave her not just comfort and cleanliness, but a restored sense of self. "I've worked my whole life," she said. "Now it's time to care for myself." She no longer wanted to cling to money she couldn't take with her. "I'm not living for savings, I'm living for today." These hotel-style communities were ideal for active seniors. But they came with limitations too. For example, most only accepted those under 75 and still capable of self-care. Margaret didn't worry about the future though. "I'll cross that bridge when I get there," she said. For now, she was healthy, free, and surrounded by friendly faces. Her story, Harold's, and even the lesson from Calvin all pointed to one truth: growing old doesn't mean giving up your independence, your dignity, or your joy. Living with adult children can be warm, but also complicated. Differences in lifestyle, expectations, and emotional needs can lead to tension on both sides. So here are a few things every parent and child should keep in mind if they decide to live together. Communicate clearly before moving in. Talk openly about expectations, chores, money, and space. Respect each other's privacy. Sharing a home doesn't mean sharing every detail of daily life. Avoid unsolicited advice. Parents should allow their children to parent and live in their own way. Let them make mistakes and grow. Stay as independent as possible. Hobbies, routines, and social circles help aging parents keep their identity and ease pressure on their kids. Be emotionally aware. Aging often comes with sadness, insecurity, or the feeling of losing control. Both sides should try to show patience and empathy. And most of all, say thank you. Thank each other for small efforts. Gratitude builds warmth in a shared home, whether it's a parent thanking their child for making space, or a child thanking their parent for their presence and wisdom. As we look ahead, it's clear that senior care is changing. With thoughtful options like community groups, fair sharing systems, and senior hotels, older adults are reclaiming their lives, and doing it on their own terms. Even small acts of care, whether it's cooking soup for a neighbor or checking in by text, can make a world of difference. Let's all play a part in building a kinder, more inclusive world for our elders.